I think I'm live. Hey, everybody. It's Vivek here from Meaningful Ideas. So, the reason I wanted to go live is I was just sitting here and I was just thinking. I was meditating, actually. I was thinking about my life. These days, I'm really into Battlestar Galactica. I'm watching Battlestar Galactica all the time, and I really love it. It's an intense show. If you haven't watched Battlestar Galactica, watch it. It's really, really good. I like it. And so I was watching it, and then there's all this stuff that kind of is weird. It kind of reflects what's happening in the world right now. And there's just an epidemic episode, and there's all this civil unrest, and it's just interesting. And so then sometimes when I'm watching a show like that, I'll have like an insight about my life or something. And then when that happens, I stop the show. Sometimes it takes me a long time to watch a show. Sometimes I'll stop the show and I'll close my eyes and I just think about that insight. I don't want to ignore it, right? I have found a lot of people ignore their insights. I do a lot of coaching with parents, and a lot of the time I hear parents talking and they'll say something like, my kid is really upset about the thing, but I don't know if it's really what they're feeling. And then they go on as if it's not true. And it's true, you can't know what someone else is feeling. But if you have an insight about your kid, it's worth slowing down and listening to it and trusting it, because our insight, I talk about, each of us has what I call an insight generating mechanism, IGM. And it sounds like a birth control method, IGM, but it's an insight generating mechanism. And thanks, Ronnie. And inside each of us, right? And what that mechanism does is it takes in all the available information, and usually more information than we can consciously be aware of. And then it takes all of that, and then it looks at the container, the filter. So it looks at your values, your life history, the perspective that you have, and the relationship you have with your mind and your body and the world. And then it goes through all of those filters, and we have a thought. we have an insight. There's like so much going on. Then if you believe in kind of a spiritual side of things, it also touches into your deep wisdom, your connection to the universe or the infinite, or your own infinite self, like the wave in the ocean analogy that I talk about a lot. It's like the wave tapping into the wisdom of the ocean. That's okay. That's good. I like that. And so we have this insight generating mechanism inside of us. And if we can operate with it consciously, it's something quite cool, actually, because we learn about how to learn from ourselves, and what great teachers we can be for ourselves this way. Because literally, like, that's what I do. Like, I watch the TV and it sparks something, and I notice the spark and I don't ignore it, because I understand the insight generating mechanism is one of the things that helps me learn and grow. It's a part of me. And so then I stop and I go into it, and I look at that insight and I think about it, right? And so, for example, this one was about, there's this guy, and he works he's the chief of the engineering on this Battlestar ship. We're talking about Battlestar Galactica again. So this chief of engineering on this Battlestar ship, and he was given the order to go to the other ship and then to get it running, because they were striking. And so he had to like bust the strike, and he did all this stuff to bust the strike, and he busted the strike. But then all of a sudden he's like, he got to see the conditions, and it affected him. And even though he did his job, he was questioning it. And he was looking at his own values and his own sense of integrity inside of himself, beyond the scope of the job and the expectations that were placed on him and what people thought were right. And the people who were forcing him to do that, they weren't the bad guys in the story. Actually, they were also the good guys in the story. It's like good guys and good guys and good guys. And they're all bad as well. It's like, I love that show because it's very human in a way. And anyway, so then he's questioning and he's doubting himself, and I can see he's about to turn. He's about to go, I think I'm going to support the other side. And he's about to make a big life decision. And I feel that kind of thing inside of myself a lot, especially in the work that I do, sharing this message of non-coercive collaborative parenting. Don't yell at your kids. Don't punish your kids. Don't tell them they're wrong. What? And the whole world, what? Well, not the whole world, but the few hundred people that follow me. What? One day the world, though. I want the whole world to hear about non-coercive collaborative parenting, the non-coercive collaborative mindset, right? But anyways, I'm not going into that just now. So I was watching the show, and I think of myself, and I think of that, and I think of my values, and I think of constantly trying to like live my life so that my choices are in alignment with my values and my thoughts and my feelings and my relationships, and they never are. And so I'm always working to try and make them so. So then I had all that kind of like swirled in me when I was watching it. I'm not going to ignore it. Shut the TV off. Sometimes if I'm watching with my family, I don't shut the TV off, but I make a note and I'm going to come back to it later. But in this case, I'm alone here. I was doing some work, writing something about parenting or something, and then I was just taking a break watching the show, and I had the insight stop, and I meditate, and I think about the insight, and I'm watching the insight, and I'm thinking about it. And I'm thinking, well, thinking things like, where am I? Where am I not? How can I more? What's obstructing me? Like I think about those kind of things. I have something that I call the 6 questions that I use to think about an idea. So I'm closing my eyes and I'm thinking about this process, and then I'm thinking about the insight, and it's really I'm feeling some encouragement, but I'm also noticing that I started to feel shame because when we get an insight and a change, it almost always shows us how we can shift something. Means we have a different perspective on what we were doing before. And if we didn't get a solid grounding on life as a process, not product, and that the process is more important than the achievement, which is if we didn't get a solid grounding on that, then we think our worth is about the achievements. And so if I wasn't doing it as well before, it's a problem for me. I'm less worthy all of a sudden. And then all the wrongness creeps in and the shame, and I could see it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not helping me, but I mean, I teach this. So at least, and I work on it all the time. So when I saw it, I just stopped and I just started chanting. And this was entirely spontaneous. I just started chanting, no wrongness, no wrongness, no wrongness, no wrongness, no wrongness, no. And I felt it wanting to creep in. No, no wrongness. I wasn't letting go of the insight. I wasn't making an excuse for what I did, because I know that I did things less in alignment than I'm going to do now that I learned something. That's what learning is about. Otherwise, what's the point? but but so I want the learning, but in fact the shame was keeping me from the learning and the growth, because I was focusing on the shame. So I'm like, oh, the shame. Oh, I feel bad. I'm not worthy. It's not good. I should just give up. And I'm focusing there, not on the thing I'm learning. The thing I'm learning is, I did that, but I could do this instead. And if I love myself in this way and think this way, and next time I'll try this. And then I'm like excited about what I can learn from it. But when I'm focused on the shame, all I can think about is right. So I don't want to let go of my responsibility or my accountability. That's not what I'm talking about. Actually, that's why my saying is, punishment teaches kids to not take responsibility for their action. It's specifically intentional, well, maybe not intentionally, but specifically designed to make kids not take responsibility for their action, to teach them that. Because the focus is on the punishment, not the action, and not the impact, and not the human connection that's disrupted by the action. I mean, when I act out of alignment, my human connection to the people that I value, which is all people, yeah, in a broad sense, and the people in my system, they're affected negatively. And I don't want that, because I care about them. And so I want to operate in a way where my impact is maximum positive. And people might think, well, then you're like, you're someone said to me, pandering. You're like pandering to other people to keep them happy. And no, because I can't genuinely contribute positivity to the system from an artificial place, and it's artificial positivity. But I'm not talking about the appearance of positivity. I'm talking about, how can I inject, I feel like yelling just now. Sorry. I'm going to yell away from the microphone. Actual positivity, right? Actual positivity is not that fake positivity, because it has to include myself. I remember years ago, like when my kid was in elementary school, and I was talking to the secretary. I never forgot this moment. You know, some moments like Doctor Who, they're stuck in time. They're stuck in my memory. I was always in the office, not because my kid was a problem, but because I was a problem. Because I was always in the office. I was the chair of the school council. I always had something to say. I always had a suggestion for a change, and I always brought donuts, so everybody loved me. Whenever people tell me, "Fake, I'm having a problem with the schools," my first suggestion is always bring donuts to the office every week. And if they don't like donuts, bring bagels. But and I used to bring jewelry. I'm a jewelry designer. I used to bring jewelry in, and I didn't care. I'm not above that. They loved me. I had the run of the school in a lot of ways. But I remember I was talking to the receptionist, and I was telling her about my martial arts practice. I wasn't dancing at that point. This was before dancing. This was a long time ago, and and I was telling her about my martial arts practice and studying with one of the best martial artists in the world and all this stuff. And she was like really fascinated by it. And she said, well, I don't know, as a parent, I feel like I can't really have my own interests. And I want to support their interests. I said, yeah, but you know, we're not only supporting their interests by what we do, we're also showing them how to relate to interests by how we relate to our interests. And I said, you know, if I want to be a good model to my kid, I need to be a good model for myself, you know, because they're going to treat themselves, they're going to pick up a lot about how to treat themselves by how I treat myself, by how they witness me treating myself, right? That's why I mean my kid is 23 and still I shut off the screen so I shut off the show so that I can pay attention to the insight because it's going to make me a better parent. My kid's 23. I want to say my kid's 23 a few times because if your kid's 4 or 5, you have a lot of years of introspection and inner work ahead of you. And that's not a bad thing. It isn't, because every time another piece gets another layer of what I call the infinite onion. I love the infinite onion, right? It's an infinite onion. Yes, there's a center, but it's an infinite distance away because we're infinite. It's a koan kind of. It's a kind of it's not linear. It's not linear. But anyways, but it's an infinite onion. That's why at 23 here I am sitting here thinking. And then I noticed but this is but the core of all of this that I wanted to share is that I noticed that wrongness. And I know it keeps me from my growth. And I know it keeps me from myself. And I know it keeps me from my kid. And I know it keeps me from my passion. And I know it keeps me from you. And I want to share what I have with you. That's why I do this. That's why I do everything I do. I do it for her and I do it for you. I really don't do anything else. And so if I want to be effective in that, I have to take this shame, all this shame, the shame monster, right? That is a stress monster, self-condemnation monster meditation where we learn to hold and breathe with this thing. We're not trying, I don't want to repress it because that's also not going to help. My shame is part of me, but I don't want it to control. I want it to inform. I want to hold it and I want to have compassion for it, but I don't want it to control my decisions. So I remember I was holding the shame here, right? And on this side is the shame, and you're bad, Vivek, for your mistakes. You're bad. And so I started to go, no wrongness, no wrongness, no wrongness, no wrongness. And I was feeling it. And I was feeling it wanting to get me and get its hooks in me. No wrong, no wrongness. And then I start to feel it. No wrongness. No, and then my mind was like criticizing. Vivek, you're saying the negative. The spiritual people will tell you should say the positive. I'm like, no, shut up. And I went, no wrongness, no wrongness. And I started saying it out loud. No wrongness, no wrongness. And then I was like, it freed me up all of a sudden. You know, it freed me up, and I was able to see my responsibilities and what I had done and what I want to change. I was able to see it so clearly because I didn't have to hide from it because I wasn't hiding from the shame of it. You know, I feel the remorse of it. I always talk about the difference between remorse and shame. And I know Brene Brown uses the words shame and guilt. Personally, I don't like that because guilt still has a lot of connotations in society. You know, it's like they always talk about the parents using guilt trips and your grandmother guilting you, and you're guilty until you're innocent until proven guilty, and then you're guilty and guilt. So the word is like synonymous. It's not synonymous, but it's like extremely close to shame for me. For me, remorse and regret. Regret is more like, it was I was it's like there's like a badness, like I wish I didn't do it, and I'm going to carry that regret. No, but remorse is a little different. Remorse is what I was talking about earlier. Remorse is I feel my humanity and I feel my connection to the other humans, and I feel that I disrupted the system in this way because of my because of my choices or my wounds, my reactions. And then all of a sudden, I'm not looking at myself as bad or a problem. I'm looking at where I am right now, and and where I am in my own development. I'm a tangled mass of triggers and trauma and insecurities and fears and doubts, right? Like it's like I remember when I used to work volunteer at the radio station at McMaster University back in the late 80s when I was in university. I'm about to turn 52 this month. And but I remember we'd look behind the soundboard because like this is the late 80s, right? So those we'd look behind the soundboard and call it the rat's nest because there'd be so many wires and nobody knew really where all of them went. There was like one guy in the station, like long hair and dark glasses all the time, and he knew where every wire went. And I don't remember his name, but everybody would be like, "Oh, Jeff, we can never get rid of Jeff, or we won't know how anything works." I loved working at the radio station at university. I never did any work. I was always at the radio station. Anyway, um, but I remember, but that rat's nest is like how I feel a lot of the time, you know. And so the only way I can get through all that is being patient with myself and loving with myself and kind with myself and continuously working on that. And so yelling out, no wrongness, no wrongness, no wrongness, it really helped me focus. It was like a laser beam. It really helped me focus my thinking and my connection to the insight generating mechanism. But in the insight generating mechanism, the part of me that brings insights and wisdom to the surface so that I can have access to it and then implement it in my life. It didn't have the shame clouding it, the wrongness clouding it, right? And so I was able to look really clearly. And all of a sudden I was like laughing. I found myself laughing. And then I was crying because the insight was more than just the idea. It went in physically into and emotionally into me. And immediately I thought, this could really help people. I need to go live. I don't even take time to formulate a theory or anything. This just happened, So I want to relate this directly to parenting too, because that way of relating to our insights, that way of relating to learning and mistakes, because the way of relating to the insight was stopping and paying attention to it and really caring about it and going into it. And the mistake was noticing the shame, the wrongness, and then like really holding a very strong boundary. Call it a boundary, right? I held a boundary for myself. I'm gonna look at the thing, but the shame, and I'm not gonna repress the shame. So there's no repression, but no projection. That's what I say. No repression, no projection. It's a delicate balance to hold. And it's also a warrior's balance to hold. That's why I say hold a boundary. Hold a boundary with someone. Like, no, I don't want to be talked to that way. That's kind of what it's like. I don't want to be talked to that way. So you just hang on a minute. I understand that you come from a lot of pain, and I love you, and I care about you, and I care about what happens to you. I do. I'm talking to my shame, right? I care about what happens to you. I need to think about this for a moment. Just give me a moment. No wrongness, no wrongness, no wrongness. And then I'm like, and then I can think about that. I just and those there was like a tears and crying. They were mixing because it felt so good to just learn something deep and feel something deep. So good, right? So then I want to give that experience to my kids, or at least I want to hold space for my kids to have that experience. So so then there's a couple of parts to that. One is when they have insights, regardless of what the insight is, I want kids to feel that we value their insights. I want them to feel it, right? I want them to feel it so that they look for more. My kid, when she has an insight, even about this, so when she has a big insight about her life, or when she has an insight about a new way to use her chopsticks, I value all those insights so much. She gets such a kick out of sharing them with me, and I get a kick out of sharing them with her. And then we lift each other up because we share our insights with each other. Because one person's insight generating mechanism is directly connected to another person's, because we all are connected. We have mirror neurons, and we feel each other, and we communicate on levels that are incredibly subtle that most of the time we're not even aware of, right? So we're all connected. And then and again, if you add the spiritual, I always add the spiritual after, because the stuff that I am teaching is not reliant on you having any spiritual belief whatsoever. I do, but I don't teach from that perspective, because even if you don't believe in anything spiritual, everything, almost everything that I teach is 100% applicable. So I always like to say at the end, because I don't want to impose my ideology on anyone else. My parenting ideology, yes. My spiritual ideology, no. Yeah, I will never want to be that, but I'm very happy to be, a little bit adamant about the parenting philosophy. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Anyway, yeah, the kids, right? So I want, I want to focus on helping my kid create a deep relationship, an enthusiastic, like really heartfelt relationship with their own inside generating mechanism. Yeah, so that they know that there's that thing inside of them, that's doing all of that incredible processing, that's putting all these pieces together that we can't even conceive of. And again, if you have the spiritual thinking as well, is connected to that deep universal consciousness that we all share, the ocean beneath the waves, that all the waves are made of and only made of. Right, so there we are. And so then I want my kid to know that. I'm not going to tell them that. Did you know you have an insight? I mean, actually do, but not in a lectury way. I would tell them, I was like, yeah, like 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 if you close your eyes and listen, you'll hear some kind of like message or feeling inside, and you can feel it in your body, and you can feel it in your emotions, you can feel it in your mind, and it tells you like really deep things about yourself that feel good, that are right for you. And that's something that you can have a really deep relationship with, kiddo. And I trusted it. What do you feel right now? I would ask my kid about that all the time. So just sometimes I would say close her eyes, and there were times that she would resist closing her eyes, and I would think, okay, maybe she doesn't want to close her eyes, or maybe she doesn't want to be told to close her eyes. As soon as I noticed that, I would be like, close your eyes or open your eyes. Anything you want to do with your eyes. I don't want to push, right? There's that tendency to push when they resist, because then we enter our own inner child trying to fight back against the coercion that we experienced. I'm trying so hard to be aware of that. But I want my kid to have a really solid relationship with their inside generating mechanism. So I'm always pointing children back to their own their own IGM. I'm going to use the acronym. I'm always pointing kids to their IGM. I want them to see it. I want them to know it. I want them to feel it. I want them to trust it. I want them to follow it. Um, I want them to include it in their decision-making process. Sometimes decision making is a very complex thing with kids. And when this is why the no wrongness is so important, because when we base our decisions on wrongness, on shame, rather than remorse, notice they're both pains that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the shame pain and the remorse pain. So I'm not talking about, oh, feel good all the time. I'm not talking about that, because I hear the arguments in my head, right? I've been doing this a long time. So sometimes I respond to the arguments as they appear in my head. Anyway, I guess that's part of it. Teach quite a radical philosophy. It really is. I mean, I don't think it's radical, but radical in relative to the mainstream. It's radical. It's wildly radical, and uh, and so and so we receive a lot of criticism, right? And we have experienced, I will say, over the years, different levels of it, and have had different relationships with it. And and I know it's been an ever evolving experience for me to like trust myself, to know myself, to believe in myself, to believe in what I'm doing, but also to be open when someone does do that, whether I tell them about it or not. I'm going to take the feedback seriously and really look at myself honestly, because I want to be more in alignment. This is what I want. I know my values, even though I'm always learning about them and exploring them, but still I have a fairly good sense of my values, and I have a fairly reasonable sense of whether I've acted in or out of alignment with those values. And then somebody sometimes will point it out, and I'll say, oh yeah, you're right, that was out of alignment. I mean, I wrote a whole post about that just the other day, my anger post. And I love that post because I know I'm kind of rambling now, but I'm just going to keep doing it. I love that post. If you look on my Meaningful Ideas page, if you haven't seen it, and it says, I love my anger. It says, let me be clear, I love my anger. That's how it starts. But the post itself was actually supposed to be about the fact that, or the focus of it was about the fact that two independent people, separate from each other, both gave me the same feedback, that they felt I was being too harsh. And I have been criticized enough. I could tell that these people were saying, I agree with your message and I like what you're saying and I live the same way. And actually I agree with everything that you said. And I feel the way you're saying it can make people feel judged and not hear your message. Is different than is different than someone who's criticizing me. They really weren't. They were giving me feedback. Two people. And so I wrote a whole, and I said, okay, Vivek, you know the drill. If that, this is a situation where you need to, and I did the same thing as with the TV, right? With Battlestar Galactica, I stopped. I stopped. I was even writing another article. I haven't even gone back to it yet. I just stopped everything I was doing and I focused on that. I'm getting a lesson. Let me just stop. Let me just think about that lesson for a bit. And I stopped and I felt it and I felt into the anger and I felt into the frustration. And then I noticed that I was projecting. And remember, I said I don't want to repress and I don't want to project. No projection, no repression. No repression, no projection. So I noticed I was projecting and I don't want to do that. So I was very grateful to those people for giving me that insight, you know. But I didn't hold myself in wrongness about it. And then when I did, I worked on it. And I also don't expect myself to be perfect. Like my sister, this is the sister thing I was going to tell you. I was just on the phone with her because every time I go live, I call my mom and I say, "Hey, mom, I'm about to go live," and and she, uh, and she tells me, and because she never wants to miss it, so I have to call her before I go live, even if it's fun. It can never be actually spontaneous. It's always somewhat spontaneous because I got to call mom first. So then my sister's there, so she answered the phone, and she said, and she said, Vivek, I've been reading some of your comments lately, and you seem really angry. Are you okay? And she didn't even read this other post, so she didn't even know. So I'm like, okay, that's three now. So plus other people on the post had said, yeah, I've been noticing that about you lately, Vivek. And someone had messaged me, someone who's closer and that really knows me, said, yeah, I've been noticing that about you, Vivek. I'm like, okay, I hear you. There's something for me to work on. So now, see, I'm laughing through the whole thing. That wasn't a nervous laughter. Yesterday, I talked about having a nervous laughter. Today, this wasn't a nervous laughter. This was really seeing this is like the joy of having something to learn and grow into. The only reason it's joyous is because I spent the last 25 years working on my sense of wrongness and shame, because I've been working on my relationship with my mistakes for decades. I want to stress this, for decades. This is not a short-term thing. You know, these days when I'm on coaching calls with parents, I often will say, I think we'll still be having this same conversation in 10 years. Not because we don't get better at it, but because it's an infinite onion. I love the infinite onion. Yeah. So there's 25 years of work on shifting my relationship with mistakes so that I could start my kid off with a really positive relationship with mistakes. And this is the second part of what I want to talk about. The first part was helping our kids with the insight generating mechanism. The second part is the relationship with wrongness and mistakes. I did not, it's one of the most powerful things we can do for our kids is keep wrongness away from them. Wrongness is um, well, remember my saying, punishment teaches kids to not take responsibility for their action. Wrongness is the same. Wrongness keeps us from taking responsibility for our action. Wrongness keeps us from empathy. Wrongness keeps us from connection with ourselves and with others. Wrongness keeps us from our own ethical sense, our own conscience, because we can't look at it because it hurts too much if we're out of alignment with it. So we can't even look at it. You know, I want our kids to feel their conscience, to feel their values, and to love them, and to be proud of them, and to have joy in them. And it's hard to do that when they come from the outside, and when they're held in place by coercion. You know, I saw a post on some group today, and they were talking about, was it screens or homework? I don't know what it was. And somebody said, "Have you thought of a contract?" Yeah, it was social media. How to enter your your teen engaging with social media. How do you engage with your teen? Somebody said, how about creating a social media contract where you all agree, you all agree, I love you all agree, you all agree. The word agree makes me laugh in those situations. Um, we all agree that, I'll tell you why in a sec. We all agree that we're going to only use it this much and in this way, something, 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 something. My question was, what happens if they break the contract? How is a contract like that held in place? I mean, a contract by definition has consequences to it, you know, because then it's something that you can break, and if you break, you have to there has to be some power structure in place to give consequences. And who's the power? What is the power structure? It's the parents only. It's the parents, 100% the parents that create that power structure. And of course, society backs it up. But I mention it's the parents because we also have the choice to choose a different power structure. You know, like here in my home, my wife and I, we have the choice to create any power structure we want here. Most people choose a coercive hierarchical power structure. That's just what most people choose. And to different degrees, you know, but you don't have to. That's your choice. You have the choice. You know, like, yes, your kids are going to go out and interact with coercive power structures outside the home. Yes. And yes, it's important to teach them about how to navigate those systems. Yes. But that doesn't mean you have to replicate those ineffective, painful, damaging, dehumanizing systems in your home. Of course not. Of course not. You can teach about the systems without actually being the system. I mean, that's a video I just made like just a few days ago. I said, be the system, don't be the system, be the wise teacher that helps them learn about the system. Makes so much more sense to me. And but the thing is, most people think they are the system. They think they deserve punishment. I deserve punishment, so you deserve punishment. So how can I really let go of thinking my kid deserves punishment as long as I believe I deserve punishment? God, I can't. I can't. There's going to come a point. There's going to come a point where I can't hold it. So I have. That's why 23 years in, I'm still doing that work, because I know every word I say, every thought I think is going to affect her inside generating mechanism and her relationship with herself and her relationship with her relationship with mistakes and her relationship with being out of alignment. And I love that I have that influence. I honor that influence, and I treat it with great integrity. I treat it with great care. You know, I want uh I really want to feel the I want my kid to feel that they can trust that guidance. You know, I mean, at 23, my kid really trusts my guidance. Even now, she really, really trusts my guidance, and she is very happy to lean on me. She's very happy to be connected to me and to trust my ideas, because she knows she doesn't have to follow them. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to end. I just want to ask you two things. One, to think about, how can you focus on your child's insight generating mechanism? How can you notice their insights and help them trust their insight generating mechanism? That's one question. Second question, um, how can you help them have a really powerful relationship with mistakes? How can you help them have that no wrongness feeling, can do no wrong feeling, in their nervous system when they're around you, not only mentally, but in their nervous system. So when they're around you and they drop something, their reaction isn't this. Their reaction is, I love that. I love that. Like, I have this video on my YouTube channel. Please, by the way, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Meaningful Ideas. And I have this video called The Spaghetti Sauce Disaster. And you should watch that video. It's a great video. It's like 5 years old or something, 4 or 5 years old. But I talk about this time where I was in my room. My daughter was out here making some food, and she knocked on the door and she came in. She said, "Dad, I've spilled a little spaghetti sauce. Can you come help me clean it up?" And I said, "Sure." She was just cool, like nothing had happened. She just wanted some help cleaning up. And I came out into the kitchen, and it was like a crime scene. There was spaghetti sauce on the counter, on the cupboards, on the floor, spread across the kitchen, and a huge splash across the kitchen. And even the picture that I put on the video doesn't quite do it justice. And I walked in, I said, "Whoa, this is a crime scene." And she said, "Yeah, it is." I said, "I tell you what, get your speaker, put on some tunes, and we'll clean it up together. And she said, yeah, that's a great idea. And I said, let's pretend we're actual crime scene investigators and this is blood. So then we're doing that, and we had so much fun. And to me, what was amazing about that is she did this thing, this big mistake, right? I mean, the glass didn't break, but whether the glass broke or not, she did this thing that, I mean, at least a little bit feel bad about it, at least a little bit wrong. None, zero. There was not. The whole time I was watching closely, like I was doing it. I often do that. I'm doing it, but I'm watching because I'm learning, because I'm always teaching. It's kind of a cycle. And my kid knows it too. Like I have her consent for that process. But my kid is also very private, but there's something in her that wants the world to know about this parenting. She wants all of her, she sees her friends and how they suffer. She sees them, she feels it. She's very empathetic. She feels it. And I'm not talking about friends in abusive homes, just homes with rules and consequences and punishments, just normal. But they can't wait to get out of their homes, and they do all this. They twist themselves up in knots just to survive psychologically, you know. And so she's like, just share, just do it, just share. And I'm like, all right. And so I was watching as we were cleaning the stuff up. I was watching, and I was watching, and I was amazed that there was never a shadow of wrongness that came. I was feeling it. I was thinking, because any mistake is that for me, right? And I was just watching and watching and waiting, and I was almost hoping, not really, but because I was in amazement. And then I wrote a blog post about it because that's what I was doing in those days. Now instead of blogs, I just go live. But this is kind of the same thing, actually. And if you want to follow my vlog advice, please follow me here on Meaningful Ideas on Facebook, where I go live all the time spontaneously. Follow me on YouTube, where I have 60 videos right now, 60 parenting videos, and it's climbing all the time. And I'm going to start going live on YouTube more often too. Please follow me on Instagram. And that's it, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm going to end this now. And yeah, I wish you all the best. Think about that IGM. Think about the relationship with mistakes and the no wrongness. Notice the wrongness in your. Oh, I'm going to go on again, aren't I? Notice the wrongness in yourself. Notice it in yourself. And don't ignore it. Notice the insights and don't ignore them. Notice the wrongness and don't ignore it. The insights, give them your breath, give them your love, give them your attention. Let them have root. And your wrongness, just love it and give it its place. Your place is over here. Most of my experience is going to be here. Yeah, give it its place, give it its love, work on it. And if it helps you, just say it to yourself. No wrongness, no wrongness, no wrongness. All right. Take care, everybody.